welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast, where we showcase the success stories of Black and Brown veterans that have successfully unlaced the boots. Please be sure to like and comment to the Six Figure Vet podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Now, y'all, today's guest is nothing short of extraordinary, okay? Meet Warren, an Army veteran who took his discipline, creativity, and entrepreneurial drive from the military to the media world. Alongside his wife, Cass, who is also a veteran, this dynamic duo started a thriving podcast production company that's giving life to some of your favorite shows. I'm talking about legends like David Shands, Angela Reese, Megan Ashley, DeVille Ellis, Lotto. I mean, baby, we could just keep going and going. But what makes Warren's story even more beautiful is how he found love and partnership with his wife, Cass, and was able to build a beautiful business. Together, they're not just building businesses, they're building a legacy. From the battlefield to boardrooms, Warren's journey is a master class in teamwork, resiliency, and chasing your dreams. So grab your headphones. Let's go into this inspiring conversation with Warren, where we'll dive into his transition from the Army to entrepreneurship. Let's give a warm six-figure vet welcome to Mr. Warren, y'all.
That intro was a lot. Like I'm nervous now. I was like, wow, I kind of did some stuff. Make me sound like somebody.
I did it.
Yeah. Make me sound like somebody.
Of course. So I always like to start off every single episode with a mental health check-in. So how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good today. Good today. And I think I'm going to be even better tomorrow.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, I feel like a lot of times when people ask, like, how you doing? You're supposed to say, I'm fine.
Right.
But no, like, for real. So I'm happy to hear that you're doing well.
Yeah. Thank you.
And like I said.
And how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I had a really ghetto, scary morning.
Wow.
No, very ghetto and scary, but I have a rental property.
Okay.
In Alabama, and my tenant called like, it's cold here and we ain't got no heat. So I'm like, what you mean we got no heat? So I'm like, I'm about to have to buy an HVAC unit. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. But come to find out, like a fan or something was broke on the unit and it was like $200 to fix. So
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so it was ghetto and it was scary, but we survived.
That's good. They're good, you're good, so everything is good.
Everything is good. So we on track. So, you know, I'm thankful. So Warren, give us a little backstory about who you are, your upbringing. What was you doing before you joined the Army? What made you even join in the first place?
So I grew up in Philly. I was born in Philly. My parents were Army veterans. They actually met in Korea in like 1978. They knew each other for like 6 months, got together. Got married before they even met each other's parents and everything like that. And they've been married 45 years now. And so, yeah, and like I said, like they met in Korea, been together for like 45 years. We kind of bounce around a little bit. I was born in Philly. We moved to California where my mom is from. And then we moved back to Philly when I was like 8 years old, me and my sister and my parents. And I was there for a while. In high school, my grades weren't really that good. I didn't really know that much about, like, you know, if your grades are not good, you can still go to like city college or community college or something like that. I didn't really know what the options were. I always thought it was like, if you're not going to like Howard or something like that, you're not really going to be able to go to school and like get educated. So I wasn't really aware like what my options were. So I was 18, graduated high school. And I was tired of living under my parents' rule because I thought I was grown. And I was like, I'm tired of them telling me what to do. So I had the smart idea. Yeah. I'm like, I was grown. Yeah, I thought I was. So I was like, I'm tired of living under my parents' rule. They're telling me what to do all the time. Let me go and join the Army. It's like, why join the Army? Is like, they're going to be telling me what to do even more than my parents were. But I just didn't know what options, you know, I had. You know, I always had a job, but I just didn't know. I just didn't really have a direction. And so I joined the Army. As far as like I got out honorable discharge and everything like that. But I never really took to the Army as much as my counterparts did. I tried to treat it like it was like a regular job. And it's like, it's not a regular job. Anybody
What
who's
do
been
you
in,
mean by that? What do you mean you tried to, especially at the time that you served? How was you trying to treat it like a regular job?
so I joined in 99 and I joined in 99 and got out in 03. But when I went in, I tried to like, I thought it was like, you go to work, you come home, and it's like, but no, they control every single aspect of your life. And that's one part that I didn't really like. I already had structure. Like my parents were always very active in my life and everything like that. So I already had that structure. I've been working ever since I was like 14 years old. So I always had like structure. I never really had anybody that had to be like bearing down on me, like force me to kind of get up and do what I needed to do.
Right.
And so that overbearing kind of thing that I experienced in the Army, I didn't really take to it very well.
Because it's micromanaging.
Yeah, it's micromanaging in like the best way possible. Like some people actually need that, but I never really took to it as well as everybody else did. And they control the way you cut your mustache, the way you have your hair. Like even when you're out at the mall with your friends and stuff like that, if you see like your sergeant, it's like you kind of stiffen up, and it's just like.
Yep.
I just never took to that type of authority. Like I never really had any disciplinary issues or anything like that. I did my job. I got my little medals and accommodations and stuff like that. Never had any issues, but it wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
And so like I did what I needed to do. I got out. Fast forward, I used a GI Bill, bought a house with my wife. I used my VA loan, the GI Bill. Like I took advantage of opportunities outside, but I didn't really take advantage of as many opportunities while I was in. And that's one of the regrets that I had when I was in the Army. I didn't really see all the opportunities that there really were available to me.
Exactly. So you said both of your parents were in the military, right? They met in
They actually
Korea.
met in Korea. And my uncle was over there too. My dad's brother was over there too. Yeah. So I have a
Play
lot of
that
people.
out.
Yeah, I have a lot of people. My grandfather and his twin brother were in. My wife is a disabled vet. My daughter, she just got out as a captain
Wow.
a couple months ago. And so I have a lot of it, and I don't really think about it very often, but I have in my sister-in-law, she was in the Army. Like I have a lot of people in the Army, and none of them retired. All of them kind of just used the benefits and kind of, used the military service as, kind of took advantage of it, but nobody actually retired. And I knew I was going to retire.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm so happy that you said that because, when you end, they try to make you feel like if you get out, then that's just it.
Well, they literally told me that. Like my first sergeant, because I ETS from Korea. When I retired, when I ETS, my first sergeant said, "I don't want to see you back in Philly sleeping on a park bench." And it's like,
why would you assume I was going to do that anyways?
And that's wild, but it's just like, I guess, and not to knock anybody who stays in, but it's like I want to find a better word, but it's like institutionalized. It's like
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you see the military is like the only thing, and it's like if you've been in there since you were 18, and like you're like you've been in there for like 20 years or so, it's like you really can't see it from anybody else's perspective. And it's like if you love it, that's great, but it's like you have to be able to see like this is not for everybody. This is kind of just a path to something else for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I thought when I joined, I thought I was like, man, I thought I was going to run into like all these Captain Americans and all these super soldiers. It's like, it's just a bunch of regular people trying to figure it out.
In a uniform.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people. Much respect to everybody that's serving in the military. Like, I really appreciate everybody's service, but what civilians don't realize, it's a bunch of regular people.
It's regular people. Yeah. We're not superheroes.
No, we're not.
Some of them are dirtbags, actually, if you just want to keep it a bean.
Thank you for saying. Yeah, I mean, like, it really is. Yeah, it really is true. But it's people coming in for all different reasons. Some of them really take to that and they love it and they run with it. Other people's like, yo, this is just for me to get some money for school or to get some benefits, or it's not. Like, I really didn't have the attitude, and just be honest, like, I didn't join to like serve my country. I joined because my parents were getting on my nerves and I was getting on their nerves, and I needed a good, steady job.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think it is very realistic. I tell anybody, like, if you haven't found your footing yet, and you are looking for any type of stability, join the military.
Yeah.
And they keep increasing the age because they need people.
Right.
Join.
Yeah. Yeah.
But join strategically, like you said. I feel like people that look like us could really use, like, the military. I love the military. It
Okay.
set me up. I wasn't, super patriotic. I wasn't Captain America, but
Right.
I really, really, I give a really big shout out to the military because how it set my life up.
Okay.
I was able to use my GI Bill. I was
Mhm.
able to, take advantage of the disabilities that I acquired while I was in the military, and, the VA loans and the free trainings and Navy Federal. Let's give a shout out. I was able to use all of these things, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. It set me up compared to my peers that didn't join. I'm 10 steps ahead,
Right.
which is important for people that look like us because we're 10 steps behind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing about it. It's just like I'm still realizing that I'm not even coming anywhere close to taking advantage of the, of all the benefits from the military. So I'm still learning. Like at
Yep.
53, I'm still learning the stuff that I need to do. And I got out in 2003. So it's like I'm still trying to figure, like, I just bought a house with my wife like just a couple years ago. I just used my VA loan just a couple years ago. So it's like there's still benefits that I can actually reap from my military service that I haven't
Yep.
taken advantage of yet.
Yep. It's so many benefits for veterans that they gatekeep. Like,
Yeah.
they don't want you to know, and they don't want specific veterans to know about certain,
Especially with disabilities and stuff like that.
especially with
That's
disability.
ongoing struggle with me and my wife right now.
Especially that, it's a shout out to the Black Veterans Service. I'll tag them in the show notes, but it's the Black Veterans Project.
Okay.
It's a really dope veteran by the name of Richard, and he has quantified the disparities Black veterans are facing. Like, it's not just, oh, you're having a hard time getting your disability. Me too. You're having a hard time using your VA loan and figuring out information. Me too. No, like, it's strategic. Like, it's a reason. Like, it's discrimination against Black veterans.
Absolutely.
And it's a thing. So shout out to the organizations out there that are bringing light to the things that Black veterans are facing. But we have platforms like this, Chicago's Favorite Veteran, that are advocating for us, and they're teaching
Absolutely.
Black veterans, like, hey, yo, guess what? You got access to this just like they do.
And I definitely want to thank you for your platform because you are doing some amazing things and educating everybody on what's going on. So I really do appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah.
No problem. So
Yeah.
your deciding factor, you already kind of knew that, yo, this is not for me.
No.
You said it beautifully, institutionalized. Being institutionalized, that's a real thing. Okay. So I want to find out, so did you meet Cass in the military, or did you meet Cass after?
I met Cass after the military. I met her after I got out the Army, because I didn't take advantage of like all the opportunities or like really set myself up. I got out with no plan. I joined in 99, got out in 03. I didn't take it, my dad was because I was complaining about a lot of issues that I was having with my back and my knees and stuff like that. My dad kept telling me to file for disability. Well, first he kept telling me to go to sick call. Go to sick call. I sit in the doctor's office. The doctor taps on my back. Does that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with you. Give me some Tylenol and send me back to my unit. I get to my unit. My first sergeant will tell me, so you missed PT and you missed a couple hours of work, and the doctor's telling me there's nothing wrong with you. You complain about your back, and then I'll be on like extra duty. So I get in trouble for telling my doctor what was really going on with me, because the doctor say, okay, yeah, get out of here, take some Tylenol and go back to your unit.
You was being punished for that?
Yeah, I was on extra duty and all types of stuff. Like, it was, and this was like my whole military career. My whole career, I would get in trouble, and I'll tell my dad. And because, like I said, my dad was in the Army too. I tell my dad, and he was like, you just got to keep going. You're going to get in trouble. You just got to keep going. And after a while, I just got tired of it. And so when I got out, he told me to file for disability. I went there. I went to the VA in Philly, filed for disability. Same thing happened. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing in your military records saying that you really have any bad conditions or anything like that. But yeah, so I just kind of just gave it up after that. But But when I got out of the Army, like I said, I really had no plan. So I got a job at the National Park Service down there by the Liberty Bell. It was like a government service job. I got that job, and I was just staying in my parents' house. I moved back in with my parents' house after joining the Army. Everybody's all proud of me and all this other stuff. I came back home with no plan, stayed there for about a year. Then I got my own little apartment. But I came back to Philly, and all my friends were doing the same thing. I fell into doing the same exact thing that I was doing. I'm like, I might as well not even join the Army. Like, what did I go through? All this headache and all this pain and traveling to places I didn't want to go to. And I come right back home and I'm doing this. It was almost like no time had passed. And so, I, like I said, it was 2003. I stayed in Philly for like 2 more years. I left in 2005. My grandmother was like, come down south, get your head together, figure out what you want to do. And my uncle was down there too. And
Was
went
this the
down
uncle
there.
that was in Korea?
No. It was my dad's other brother. And so he was like, they was both like, come down south, come to North Carolina, get your head together, get out of the big city, kind of just relax a little bit, figure it out, get a job down here, kind of relax and figure out what your next steps are. And so I wound up getting a job at a hospital, and Cass was actually leaving Georgia, moving to North Carolina around the same exact time. So we wound up meeting at work, fell in love, got married. Yeah. It's so weird how things lined up for us. But we had a lot of common. She was a vet. I was a vet. She was leaving the city that she was living in, trying to get a new start, moving around family and kind of just figuring stuff out. And we wind up saying that North Carolina was a little bit too slow for us. And so we wind up moving back to Atlanta together. Yeah. So
And that's the love story of Warren and Pat.
It really was awesome. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, and everything happens for a reason, right? And I know moving to North Carolina from Philly was a culture shock.
It was in a way, but being in the military, kind of bouncing around to moving, because one of my first duty stations was in Texas, was Fort Hood. So I was in Fort Hood, but even before that, I was in Fort Lee, Virginia. I went to Fort Knox for basic training. So I was used to kind of bouncing around, and I knew me being around my same peer group in Philly wasn't going to be good for me anymore. Like I needed to kind of get out and experience a little bit different and kind of maybe slow down a little bit. So when I moved to North Carolina, when I first moved down there, it was slow in the right way. And then I kind of missed the city after a while. And I'm just like, and then the opportunities were drying up because it was right outside of Fort Bragg. So it was a military base right there too. So it was like the opportunities were drying up. Jobs wasn't really paying like that. And I'm like, if I'm going to be broke anywhere, I'm going to just move to Atlanta and just try to figure it out. Now, if we wind up in the same exact situation, at least we tried in a bigger city, but not moving all the way back to, because my wife is from New York. So instead of moving to New York or staying in Philly, we was like, let's go and just move to Atlanta, because we kept hearing so many opportunities just out here. And we moved down here, and we moved to Atlanta in 2011.
Okay.
And things just start kind of just really picking up for us. We start working at the same college together, and I learned IT. Like I went to college, got my degree in IT, and start trying to figure that out and start really realizing that like I'm a very technical person, and that's a skill set that I didn't develop anywhere else. And once I started going to school, and then I wound up working at the college doing IT, I'm like, I really love this aspect of it. And that kind of just transitions into like production also. Like I love production because I love shaping people's vision for their show. But I also love the technical aspect of putting everything together also.
So let's get into that. Shaping people's visions for their show. What does that look like because I feel like as a podcast producer, you also have to have some sense of creativity in order to bring people's visions to life. So what does it look like for you to shape someone's vision for their show?
It's funny that you say that, because I never thought of myself as a creative. I thought of myself as like so before I started producing other people's shows, I had my own podcast. And even with that, because it started off like, cause long story short, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Casey Neistat. So Casey Neistat, he's a vlogger, and he has like this electric skateboard, and he rides around New York, and his electric skateboard is like a remote control. Skateboards go 24 miles an hour. And so I kind of got into that. And there was a large group of people who rode electric skateboards. And like me living in California for a little while, I was always into like extreme sports and skateboards and BMX bikes and stuff. Like I'm an 80s baby. So like I was always into all that stuff. And so riding around with a bunch of other black guys in Atlanta on electric skateboards, I just thought that was so crazy. I wasn't the only one out there. And I'm like,
that's dope. That's a dope community.
It was, and I'm like, it was all everybody, but it was like
black people so versatile.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And it's just like I was like, people need to see this, and so I bought this Insta360 camera to like kind of like document our rides and stuff like that, because it was almost like a motorcycle group. Like we'd stop, we'd drink beers, and then we'd hang out in the park, and then we'd jump on our skateboards and ride around the city. And
y'all was killing it. That was dope.
Man, I got so many videos. It was so awesome, but I wanted to do more than just like show, like vlog the rides. I wanted to like sit down and talk to the people who actually did it. So the first version of my podcast, which is like sitting down with people who ride electric skateboards, talking about the camaraderie and things like that. And then I didn't want to really be pigeonholed to just only talking about that. And so I got with a coworker of mine, and he used to come to my office all the time when I worked at IT. And we'd be talking about Marvel movies and TV shows and stuff like that. I'm a huge, like, comic book nerd, sci-fi nerd. So he'd come to my office and I'm like, man, did you see this show? So I was like, we should start a podcast talking about that stuff. And so that podcast started in 2020, but then the pandemic started. So it was like nobody was making movies and TV shows anymore. So it was like the stuff that we talked about dried up. And so we didn't really have a lot of material to talk about. And so I'm saying that to say that when we did start our podcast, I was the one that kind of wrote the show notes and kind of just tried to keep us on track. But I always thought of myself as a logistical person and not a creative person. I'm the facilitator. Like I buy the gear, figure out how to use it, set the cameras up, and kind of just keep people on track. But I'm starting to realize that is a creative element. And that was
very
a
creative.
Very long way of saying that I didn't think of myself as a creative before, but I do now. But yeah, that I think of myself as a creative now, but I didn't before.
So first of all, you had a super dope concept. You had an extremely dope concept. And we know podding is everybody wants to be in front of the camera. So what made you do a full transition from being in front of the camera to being behind the camera?
That's a great question. One of the things that really made me kind of transition is because I felt like there are people who can do what I want to do, but do it better. Like, I feel like there are people who are way more articulate than I am. They can express themselves better than I can. They can take a movie concept or break down a movie better than I can. And I just didn't really feel like I was as articulate as other people were. And I need to go ahead and just kind of just fall back into the background and kind of just, because there's so many talented people out there, but their audio sucks, their video sucks. And it's like, why don't I just go ahead and just fall back and kind of just let those people tell the stories better and kind of just remove the barriers for them to go ahead and just produce.
That's good.
And on top of that, I knew my podcast would never make any money. Nobody would ever. I really felt like we would never really gain an audience. At least that's what I thought at the time. I didn't think that we would really be able to gain an audience to the point where we could eventually try to figure out how to monetize our podcast. And that's what a lot of people want to do. It's just like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You love what you do. You love talking. You love speaking. But who's to say you're not allowed to get paid to do what you want to do? And I knew that the people that I was podding with, if they didn't see any type of, financial gain or anything like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, you kind of lose motivation after a while. If you don't really feel like if you're not building the audience and you're not making any money, I mean, at least one of those, at least you're building the audience and building a community. But if I'm not building a community and I'm not making money from this, it kind of deflates you a little bit.
Very much so.
At least it did me. Yeah.
Yes, very, very much so. I remember when I first started my podcast, I had shout out to David Shans. I had joined his 7-figure podcast community, and I had this really big guest on. Shout out to Kimmy's Creations. I had this really big guest on, but then after Kim, the guest that I had on next didn't have such as big as a platform, and I think I got 10 views. I'm like, oh, yeah, where do people go?
Exactly.
Where are the people?
Exactly.
Right. So it can definitely get discouraging. And I like what you said. I think a lot of times in the podding space, why a lot of podcasts don't last is because you lose the momentum. Like you have to find a driving force. You have to continue to drive a driving force. And a lot of people don't want to be honest and realistic. Like, say you want to get paid.
Yeah. Just be honest. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's nothing wrong with that.
That's why you have a job. But if you can if you can entertain people as your job, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get paid from podcasting. And I think, I think too many people start with the vision of, oh, we had this great conversation. Oh, we so funny. Let's start a podcast. And it's like,
that's going to die out fast.
It doesn't really work like that. And it's like, you're not building an audience, and it seems cliche, but you really have to serve your audience. You have to give them something. You can't just be, oh, we cute and we talking and we talking about dating. Nobody care about your dating life.
At all. We don't even know you.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And it's like, but there are good dating podcasts, but if you look at what they're doing, they're serving their audience. They're telling stories, and they're opening themselves up and giving advice. You know, and so perfect example, like we produced a show called Cocktails Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing. They were probably podding maybe like 4 or 5 years before we even came along. So they had this crazy huge audience already, but they were servicing their audience. They were extremely entertaining. They're like Kiki and Medina. They're almost like comedians. Like they should really be on stage somewhere. But they're great at telling their stories about being vulnerable, about opening up, and they also know how to bring on guests. They can actually really articulate themselves and actually give advice for particularly women out there dating advice in Atlanta and the whole world, basically. So it's like, they're actually servicing their audience, and a lot of people are not doing that. They're just talking about the bad dates that they're had, but they're not funny. They're not, they don't properly articulate it. They're not, like, there's no anecdotal information in there. So it's like, you have to always find out how to service your audience. What are you giving them?
Yeah, because if we all, no matter how much like you try to fight it, we most of the time we're in a consumer mindset. So what are you giving me? What am I consuming? Do you have anything for me to consume that I feel like, even if it's not of value, that I feel like is of value to me, or at least feels good?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's sometimes it's hard to repeat that constantly.
Yeah.
Or even put it into perspective when you think about doing something like starting a blog or doing a podcast or a YouTube show. No, it's really hard to kind of put that into perspective. So what point did you start taking it serious? Tell us the journey of you being like, okay, this podcast good, but I'm gonna get behind the camera, to actually being like, okay, I want to take this serious. I want to turn this into a business. It's time to lock in.
It started during the pandemic, like I said, because we already started the second version of the podcast during the pandemic, talking about movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And it came a point where one of the guys that I was actually podding with, like my podcast partner or whatever, he was a musician, and so he wanted to kind of he didn't really take the podcast serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have all these show notes and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, we need to read this, and I would have them in the group chat and everything like that. I'm like, all right, did you check it out? We'd get there. I'm like, no, I didn't read none of that. And it was like, he will always, and it was like, it was kind of entertaining, but I would try to stay on track, and he would derail it, and I would have to bring him back. And it's like, it was kind of like a push and pull. And it's like, you need a little bit of that on a show, but it was just too much. And then it was a point where he was doing his music stuff, and he was like, he didn't feel like editing the last episode that we did. And I'm like, well, we missed a week because you didn't want to edit. And I didn't know how to edit. And so he was showing me a little bit, but I had to jump on YouTube, learn how to edit. And I kind of start kind of loving that, you know, learning how to put stuff together. And one of the biggest projects that we did was, so we had interviewed this company called Dope Coffee. It's another black veteran has his own coffee company and his own record label called Dope Coffee.
Shout out to Dope Coffee.
Yeah, and it's wild because the guy Mike, he's a rapper, and so he wanted to do like almost like a Tiny Desk type of situation. And so we had just finished doing an interview with him, and he was like, yo, this is dope. I'm thinking about doing a Tiny Desk type of situation, and I want y'all to film it. And we were so excited about doing it or whatever. So after we did the interview, we went out to eat downtown in Atlanta. And so we had just finished the interview. So we had all our gear in the car. We had like our MacBooks, we had our cameras, we had the audio interface, everything sitting in the car while we went to go eat. Came back outside. It was around like 7, 8 o'clock. And my homeboy, he had jumped in his car and he was like, why is it so windy in my car? The whole back window was bust out, and they reached in and took all of his stuff. They took his back, they took his computers, they took everything. I had my audio interface in the car. Actually, it was very similar to that right there. It was like an audio interface to like plugging the microphones. I still had that, and I still had like one of the cameras. And so we were just kind of just operating off of that. But after that situation happened, we were like super deflated. Like we just really kind of just, what are we gonna do? I wanted to quit, but it's like, and we had that job coming up. Like we had just got hired to like do
coffee.
Yeah, so we wound up getting a couple more things together, and we wound up pulling it off. Like we grabbed, we got some cameras, filed insurance claims and stuff like that, got all the cameras and stuff like that, and we recorded that. And he didn't want to edit it. My podcast partner didn't want to edit that video. And that was my first project editing. We was just like editing like the musical project, and it was dope. Like it really turned out really well. And like I kind of fell in love with doing that. And I wanted to start producing for other people. So it's like my podcast partner, he didn't really want to pod anymore. He wasn't really that interested in anymore. And if he didn't want to do it, I didn't want to be sitting on camera by myself.
Right.
So I'm like, let me go to just transition and sort of try to see if I can produce for other people. And basically we use our podcast episodes as a proof of concept. Like I showed people what we did. Now, nobody was watching our stuff. Nobody liked it.
Of course not. This is an example.
But this is an example. Like, if you like the way our stuff looks, we can do this for you. And at first I started charging people like $80 to like do their episodes. And I start realizing the amount of time that I spent doing something that I love, I get paid 3 times, like I'm getting paid 3 times more money doing this than I would at work. And I actually love my job at the time. I was doing IT at a college. It was super easy. Like they didn't really bother me too much or whatever. I kind of just had my free reign and kind of do whatever I wanted to do. But I started doing math. I'm like, if I spend more hours doing the thing that I really love doing, which is producing podcasts, I can make way more money than I do at work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that easy yet, but I mean, but the numbers were there. You know what I'm saying? As far as like how much money I could make if I got more clients. And so I started kind of just building that up a little bit more and got to the point where I was able to, after work, after I get off work at like 5 o'clock, I would run to the studio, bring all my stuff, and I would just set it up in podcast studios and have different clients and stuff like that. So it's like it started kind of building up. And then when my wife came on, it's like it just took over. Like it just went crazy. Yeah.
So tell us about, what it's like working with Cass. Shout out to Cass. Cass, we thinking of you, sis.
Yes, absolutely.
What is it like working with your spouse? How do you navigate the challenges of running a business together while maintaining a healthy, strong relationship?
Honestly, so the more entertaining answer would be, oh, it's hard. You shouldn't work with family and all. It's so easy. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
That's so good.
I love
fact
that me and my wife get to hang out every single day together, do everything together. We get to go to work together. We get to go home together. We get to talk about the stuff. We're building a business together. And I thought everything was cool before, and she kind of liked what I was doing and started recognizing like how the business was growing. But once she came on and she learned everything, it was just, we work side by side every single day.
That's so dope.
Every day. And it's just easy. At first it was harder for me to like turn it off, because it's like before she came along, it was hard for me to turn it off, because like I would be at work talking about it, and then I would come home and like, hey, we met so and did this and recorded this, and it's just like and she always listened to all the stories. She let me run my mouth all the time over there, but like now she's in it, and it's like I can't imagine going back, because it's like, we'll be out there recording. It's like it'd be like T.I. or like Killer Mike or like just different people we're recording with, like Cocktails or like Jesse Wu and stuff like that. And we're meeting all these people together. Like I don't have to come home and tell her, hey, I just met so-and-so. Like I would hate that. Like if we couldn't do this anymore and I had to go out there and I was meeting all these famous people, And we met, like, I don't know if you watched like Cutler's Court, but we met the Cutler. Like, we just met so many
Oh, that's
people
so
just out
dope.
there in the world. And just I'm not sure if you watch Sisters, but we met
Yes.
Zatima, Zach, and Fatima.
Zach and
We met them like pod, and it's just like, it's just so awesome. We get to meet so many people together, and it's like, it's people that she actually watch on TV that she
yeah,
gets like interact with, and not just meet and take a picture. Like, she's worked with these people,
working with
work
them.
with these people, and it's just great that we can do this side by side, and she's just as interested in it as I am.
Yeah, so now
Love it.
it's literally a family business.
It's a family business.
affair.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, you have worked with some very, very big names, from the stars of Sisters on BET to David Shands, Angela Reese, Lotto, Jessie Wu. I mean, you name it, baby. Warren got the pictures. All right. How did you strategically place your business, especially because you said this didn't start until post-COVID, right? So that's fairly new.
Yeah.
How did you position yourself to get into these spaces?
So, you know what? Okay, so I'll give the quick answer first. Instagram.
Okay, what about Instagram? Because everybody got Instagram.
DMs, DMing people, having something. So it helped because we had our own podcast before. We had a proof of concept, and I had a passion for trying to figure it out. Like, I watched, like, my favorite channel on YouTube is watching Think Media. Like, I love that channel, and especially when Omar was on there. Like, I used to just watch them all the time. Watching people, you keep mentioning David Shands, watching people like him, and just figuring out what cameras they're using, figure out what audio interfaces they're using, figure out what microphones they're using, and just building. And then like, a lot of things really took off. I'm not sure if you know who Mandy is. Mandy B. She had her podcast was named Horrible Decisions before. They just changed it to Decisions. But she had a podcast, and just reaching out to her, just telling her how dope, her stuff is, because I started really tapping in with her podcast when Joe Budden started his podcast network and started branching out and having other people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know very much about her before, but when she started a podcast under his network, I reached out to her and I said, it's really dope, because she was always getting on like, she's different when she's on other people's shows. And she was breaking down the business of podcasting, like how podcasters can actually really make money. And so I thought that was really dope, that she just wasn't gatekeeping. She was like, this is how I make money. This is what I did. This is what you need to do. And she was breaking like terms like CPM and SEO and all this other stuff that I never heard before.
Yeah.
And so when I'm learning how to actually just set up cameras and set up microphones, she's talking about how to make money. So I reached out to her. I told her, it was dope that she's really presenting all this information. And she reached back out. She started looking at some of the stuff that we produced, because at that time we were already working with cocktails. And she started, I'll take that back. We got cocktails. We started working with cocktails and B. Simone, because she had reached out. She saw that people needed people in Atlanta, and she already saw that we was doing stuff. So she was like, she put us on to cocktails, and we started working with B. Simone and Megan Ashley through her.
Yeah.
So and even Ask Ashley podcast, reaching out to people, long story short, reaching out to people and DMing people, and then having something to show, not just saying, hey, I can do this, but saying, this is what I've done. If you like this, I can do this for you. And it was just as simple as that. We're trying to transition away from depending on social media as much. Like, what crazy thing is, we don't even have our website fully together, but that's something that we're building out right now. But we're trying to build an infrastructure outside of just depending on Instagram. But Instagram was the thing that really got us popping.
But the dope thing about it is y'all work so dope that I feel like at this point it's word of mouth.
And that's what it's starting to be too, because I started looking at that too. I'm like, I haven't really found new clients on Instagram as frequently as I used to. But people are saying, hey, I found you on such and such, and I saw what you did. Or a lot of times our clients will interview somebody, and then a person who's the guest will hire us to do their own podcast and work. And I always tell my wife, work leads to work. When you out there working, it leads to work. Like, we're about to work with Jessie Wu tomorrow, and God knows who she's actually going to be interviewing. And once they see what we do and our turnaround
behind it,
they're going to turn around and say, hey, I need somebody to do this for me.
Yep. Yes. And for me, Warren, why I found your story so intriguing, because I feel like it's the epitome of opportunity meets preparation. I feel like you are like that should be like y'all's slogan because how
I might steal that.
listen, do that. Listen, because it is I feel like that's the epitome of your business is opportunity meet and preparation. Like and pivoting. Okay, maybe I ain't gonna be the best podcaster, but let me tell you something. I can edit, I can
Yeah.
produce.
Yeah.
So let me take this thing that wasn't successful, this lemon, and then turn it into lemonade by showing people, okay, yeah, don't worry about how many views it got. Just look at the
Yeah.
product.
Exactly.
I could do this for you. Do you need this? And then another really, really dope thing about how you place yourself in the podcasting industry, you found David once, one time he said, don't come up and ask me how you can work with me. Come up and tell me what you can do for me.
Exactly.
Tell me what you can do for me.
And that's the thing about it. Like, so we just did like an onboarding call yesterday, and he was asking a lot of questions. Like I laid out all the production, like how we do stuff and like how we pull up. Like we're and that's the thing about it. We're fully mobile, so we don't even have our own studio. So when somebody wants to record,
no overhead costs. What?
Nope. We don't have no overhead. It's just like
You
we
a
already bought our stuff. Yeah. So yeah. So he was the client has a boxing gym, and he wants to do like a boxing podcast where he brings on like different athletes and stuff like that, talks to them, breaks down the entrepreneurship of like being an athlete and everything like that. And so he was like, well, I need you to sell me on it. Like why should I hire you instead of going with somebody else or like just buying all the stuff myself? And I've never been a salesperson. I can't sell to save my life. And I told him just straight up, I said, if you can afford to buy all the gear that we have, which is tens of thousands of dollars, if you can afford to buy all this gear, and if you can learn all the stuff that it took me 4 years to learn, and you can figure this out and do it yourself, I recommend you do it yourself. I was able to do it. Now, it depends on your skill set. If you're able to do all this stuff that I did, I recommend you do it yourself. But the problem with that, even if money wasn't an issue, which it is for a lot of people, and even if going out and researching and figuring out how to use all of this stuff is not an issue, it's still hard to be a host and produce your own show. I've tried to do that, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now. I already know.
Exhausting.
I know.
I am she is me.
I know.
It's terrible. Get out.
I don't have to tell you, but you're doing it with grace and you're doing a great job. So it's like, but a lot of people just don't have that drive and that skill set because it can frustrate so many people. But I'm just saying, I've never been a salesperson. Just like I say, like I work off proof of concept. Like I've done a lot of jobs for free. Just like somebody says, hey, I want to do like a tiny desk. That tiny desk that I mentioned that we did before it wasn't a tiny desk, but it was a musical performance similar to Tiny Desk. When we did that for free. And it's just like, we use that as a proof of concept. Now we got that in the can. Now if somebody says, can you do it? I don't have to sell it or prove to anybody. All I got to say is, this is what we did. It's right here. If you like how this looks and how this sounds, we can do this for you. And this is the price. I can't sell. I've never had game. I ain't got no game. I'm just going to tell you the truth.
Shout out to Cassie for loving you for you.
I'm almost 50. Well, I'll be 50 in a couple of years. So like I can start using the old man terms. I can show you better than I can tell you.
Listen.
I can show you better than I can tell you. Yeah, it's never going to expire. I can explain it to you. Sometimes I'll stutter. Sometimes I misspeak or whatever. But if I just show you what we've done and you like it, that's all you need to know. I can do this for you.
What advice would you give veterans or just any Black creative or somebody that wants to get into the media or entertainment industry, that wants to not get in it to be in front of the camera, but wants to get in it to do production or to do things that are more so behind the camera? What advice would you give to them?
Steady. YouTube University is the best source of education. If you don't have the time to look at YouTube videos for a couple hours a day, then don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother, because it's right there. I'm not against education. Well, I'm not against education. Like if you want to go to college, you can. But to be honest, like even when I was going to school for IT, a lot of stuff they were teaching in school is already outdated by the time you get out of school. So It's like YouTube is constantly evolving, constantly changing. And so if you don't want to take the time to watch a couple hours of YouTube videos a day, you'll never be there, because we had a client, because speaking of pivoting, we instead of just producing shows for people, some people say, man, I just want, like, some people say, like, money is no object. So I want the audio interface you got. I want the microphones you got. Go ahead and tell me everything and come out to my space and build out a studio. We do studio builds also. So it's like, if you say, hey, I got a huge
Come on,
budget,
multiple streams of income from one business.
that's what we're trying to do. And then, like, that's mostly Cass. Like, Cass is like, okay, looking at the, just looking at the field and saying, because some people are hobbyists. Some people jump in and kind of just, like, they're not really planning on, like, podcast. Like, they're not consistent, basically. And so if they're not consistent, then we don't have a consistent source of revenue just producing for other people. So we had to find other ways of actually making money. And doing studio build outs is one of the greatest things. But back to the advice, I would say steady. Make sure that you understand what makes a good show. And that's what I was doing. I was on Instagram, and when I see David Shands, or when I see Horrible Decisions, or when I see Joe Budden, I was always they're showing the behind the scenes. Let me go ahead and pause it and look at their what cameras they got, what microphones they got, how are they placing their lights. I was a creep for that stuff. Like, I was just looking at every single thing that they was doing. And if you're not trying to figure out what the greats are doing, then you're really not built for this. You have to try to, like, and I tell people all the time, that's why I do so much BTS. I want to educate people. I'm not a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Because in I don't know how it is in a lot of other places, because I didn't start a media company in any other place, but Atlanta, I ain't run into a gatekeeper yet. I just haven't. If I want to
move to Atlanta now,
I feel more at home in Atlanta than I ever have anywhere I've ever lived in my entire life. If you want to know how to do something and somebody is already doing it, people who are supposed to be my competition, there's a bunch of other production companies out here that produce podcasts, and we're probably more expensive than a lot of other people out here. But when I was starting off and asking them questions, oh yeah, do this. Come over to my studio. I can show you how to do this. And that's what I do that for everybody else. I get DMs every single day with people asking me questions. And you're not my competition. I can't, as much as I like to, I can't produce every show in Atlanta.
Nope.
Me and Cass can't do it. We only do one show a day. We gonna give you all of our time, but whoever their client is that day, we're gonna give you all our time, because Atlanta traffic is kind of crazy, and I don't want to be leaving one job and run into another one. So yeah, back to your question, you got to steady other people. We post a lot of BTS. If you want to study somebody who's going to constantly be showing you what cameras are using, what audio interfaces, just jump on our Instagram page. Check that out. Pause it. I show you the cameras that we use, the interfaces we use, the microphones we use. Study that stuff, and then study other channels like Think Media. Watch what David Shands is doing. Watch what all these other people are doing. If anybody's posting BTS, you're supposed to be on Instagram, pausing that, looking at their cameras, and then Googling that stuff. Yeah, screenshotting, bringing out all that stuff. The information is out there. It's already out there.
It is definitely already out there. So from your perspective, how has podcast evolved since you started, and where do you see it heading to in like the next 5 years or so?
That's a great question. Video is definitely more important than it's ever been. Because you just transitioned from an audio only podcast to a video podcast. It's super important. And one of the reasons why it's more important now than it was before is because video podcast allows you to have different content. It's like, if you just had audio only, you can't, what are you going to post, like a waveform on your Instagram or whatever? Like, and that's what a lot of people have done.
Yeah.
But you have options right now. And the video quality don't have to be, it just has to be something for somebody to latch onto, because it makes it searchable. Because audio only podcast, it's hard to really search that. Like, how many podcast clips have you sent somebody that was just audio form? It's always a clip of a video, something that you see on Instagram. Yeah,
a video clip. It's always a reel.
It's always a reel. It's always a reel. It's always a TikTok. It's always something. So it's like, have something where you can have, and to be honest, I only watch video podcasts. If it's an audio only podcast, I'm sorry, I'm just not engaged. And I don't even have to be looking at it the whole time. But if it's an audio, if it's a video, I don't even be looking at it all the time. I don't even
need to be looking at it, but I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let it play in the background.
Yeah. And then the thing about it is, like, even with with video podcasts, like before, YouTube was the only place where you can actually put them. Now now on YouTube, there's actually a specific tab for podcasts. And so if you put your stuff over there, it's going to be more searchable. And also Spotify is doing video podcasts now. And with Spotify, you get monetized way faster than you would if it was just on YouTube. So the evolution of podcasts, I think the term podcast is so loose because it's like a podcast really is. If it doesn't have an RSS feed, if it's not on Spotify and all the audio platforms, it's not really a podcast. Even if you got these microphones and it's on YouTube, it's technically not a podcast.
Right.
But that term is actually becoming a whole lot more broad than it used to be. But even with us, we're starting to produce more shows. Like we're starting to produce game shows. We're starting to produce cooking shows. We're doing a whole bunch of different things. And it's like,
oh, that's dope.
It's just having conversations around different elements. Like, somebody asked us, hey, I want to go fishing with my mom. Can y'all do that? And we weren't set up at that time, but we started getting more and more requests to do different things. And it's like, okay, now we're starting to meet clients where they're at. They're starting to have these really creative ideas. Like they're podcasting in the kitchen, doing mukbangs and different things like that. So it's like we're a podcast production company first, but it's like people are getting so creative. You got to kind of meet people where they're at. Yeah, you have to keep up. And that's the thing I love. Our clients challenge us all the time. They be asking us to do the craziest stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's try that. I'm down. Yeah, let's try it. Like, let's go in and try different things.
Yes, I love that. Y'all, I see $1 million company in the making. If not already, I see $1 million because this is a gold mine, because you have taken yourself. Everybody want to be a chief. Everybody want to be in a front.
Yeah.
You said you have found a way to get rich without being seen. And that is super powerful.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for y'all. Go
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, and it's like, and what's awesome is that even like working in Atlanta, we get to work around so many Black creatives, in particular Black women. Like 99% of our clients are Black women.
Yeah.
And they're killing it. Like cocktails, they go on tour.
Yep.
They're selling merch. They got their Patreon going. They got like card games. Like we work with a majority Black women. Like we love working with everybody, but it's like, it's just something special about seeing Black women thrive, doing their thing, having their conversations unapologetically. It's really dope to see. And that's another reason why I would never want to leave Atlanta, because it's like, it's so many different stories that can be told out here, and it's so many different creative people. It's just a dope place to be. It really is. And we really want to get rich by helping other people get rich. And before, like, we were just like, to me personally, I was just like, we're just going to produce for people, not really worried about how they're making money. Like, if they're making money, that's cool, because that just means that they're actually going to keep booking us. But now I'm starting to even provide more value for our clients, because I'm like, because people are starting to come to me now. I'm like, well, what's my return on my investment? Before I was like, I don't know, you got to figure it out. But
I'm just here to shoot.
Yeah, you pay me, you got to figure that out. But with the onboarding client that we had yesterday, I was like, I asked him, I said, well, what's your purpose for your show? What are you doing? Like, are you is your show meant to position yourself as a subject matter expert in this field?
Talk your talk, Warren.
That's what you have to look at it like. And that's what kind of motivated me to kind of get back into it, because now I'm starting to realize I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. I love talking about like setting up all this gear. I could talk about this stuff for hours. So it's like, if I'm not, I have to start taking my own advice. I am a subject matter expert in this field.
You are.
And I have to kind of just start doing it. So it's like, so now I'm telling people, you have to set yourself up as a subject matter expert in this field. And like, so the client is a boxing coach. And I'm like, you sit here week after week and tell people, the different techniques and stuff like that. They're gonna choose you over another gym because they feel like they know you now.
Yeah.
So your podcast will help increase your memberships. Do you have merch? Because if you're building a community around sports and boxing and stuff like that, you can start having just merch that has like your logo and stuff on it. People will buy it. They know it's the same shirt as everybody else's shirt, but because it has your logo on it, they feel like they're part of the community. and they're going to want to buy that shirt because it's from you, because they want to feel like they're part of that community. So it's like memberships for the gym, merch. You could do like brand sponsorships, like really organic stuff. Like you could have like if Spalding or something like that want to sponsor their gloves or like tap into your community because you built that community and you built that trust with them. Now, when you start recommending products from like all these different sports athletic companies or whatever, there is a natural integration of what they're selling and what you would recommend. So now I'm starting to be able to like coach people like, yo, this is set yourself up, build a community, and now they're going to start trusting you. And then brands are going to say, they trust you. So can you sell my products to your clients? I mean, to your audience.
Yeah. Because you built that rapport with your audience. So now they trust the things that you say. Man, this is, you drop, I'm charging for this episode. I'm sorry, y'all. I know my content is supposed to be free, but baby, this is price tag. But tell the people what they can expect from the powerhouse couple at 404 Creators.
So me and Cass got a lot of stuff coming up. We're actually in talks. Like we're talking about building a network. Because what we want to do, like, so is basically like, so to be like, our clients challenge us to do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
But some things, but even with that, sometimes you don't really get to do a lot of things that you want to do because I'm not getting paid to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm starting to get out of that mindset. It's like, I'm not going to set my cameras up until I'm getting paid for it. You know, I want to do this cooking show or this game show, but it's like, nobody's booking us to do it. So I'm not going to do it. And sometimes when like December was a slow month for us, a lot of people will book record in November and won't do anything in December.
Time off.
And yes, a lot of time people want to spend time, you know, rightfully so, with their family and stuff like that. So during that time, we weren't making the money that we typically make, and I didn't have an opportunity to like be creative and do stuff because I'm not getting paid for it. So I ain't pulling my cameras out until I get paid for it. So I'm turning that mindset off and saying, if I'm not getting booked to do stuff, I need to go back to that proof of concept model. More people need to be doing cooking shows, not just dating shows. They need to do game shows. They need to do musical performances. And I'm like, go back to that proof of concept. Just do it. Show people what they should be doing, and I'll let them replace me. Like, I want to start my own podcast, but I want to start it as like a roadmap, and then I just want to just phase back and just let somebody else take over as the host for my show. I want to do it for a little while, and if I love it, I love it, but I want to be able to replace myself in my shows. So I'll start my own cooking show and then have somebody jump in and replace me. I want to start my own game show and then have somebody kind of just swoop in and replace me. So it's like, I need to stay creative, even though we're not booked. Even if we're not booked as much as we want to, that shouldn't be an excuse for us to not be creative. We need to still maintain that muscle.
Look at you going from not thinking you were creative at all to flexing your creative muscles.
I'm working on it. Working on some things.
We see you. So tell the people where we can find you at.
So right now, like our biggest source of like what we do is 404 Creators. We are a mobile podcast production company, which means if you got a beautiful space in and around Atlanta that you already want to record in, we pull up, we bring the mics, the cameras, the lights, absolutely everything you need to record your podcast. I'm literally sitting in my garage right now and I just built a little studio, and I just set up the cameras, and I'm actually recording in my space right now. And we can do this in your space. So if you got a nice space, if there's already like a photography studio or something like that, and you want to go and record, or you got a nice office in your house, we will pull up, set up all the cameras, the lights, microphones. The day we record, we will hand you your hard drive, and everything will be sitting right on there. We don't have to color grade. We don't have to mix the audio. Everything is live switch right then and there.
The same day?
The same exact day. Multicam. So we're like Cass is the lead engineer. She's actually switching camera angles from camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, just like you see like in the newsrooms, and we're handing you your stuff right then and there. And so
you can't beat that.
Yeah, and we're 404 Creators on Instagram. If you got any questions about production, please feel free to reach out to us DM. I answer every single DM. I love answering DMs. I love answering questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, I just want to give you and Cash y'all flowers. What y'all have built together is nothing short of amazing. And I am so proud of y'all over here at the Six Figure Vet Podcast.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you bringing me on this show. Like, it really is an honor. I love what you do. And I love how you're speaking to veterans and just kind of just exposing their stories. It's really great to see. Looking forward to see their growth. I love it.
Yes. This has been another amazing episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast, where we showcase the success stories of Black and Brown veterans that have successfully unlaced the boots. The Six Figure Vet is out.
Hey y'all, it's a Six Figure Vet here. If you or any other active duty service member or veteran that you know is suffering with suicidal ideation, substance use, or mental health disorders, please tell them to call 988. The number is 988. There are trained crisis responders waiting to take their calls. You don't have to suffer in silence.